All right. Okay, guys, just to kind of review a little bit, yesterday we talked about Thornton Wilder, we talked about Our Town, and a couple of the things that we mentioned were that this play was produced in 1938, which I guess we can assume means that it was also written about 1937, 1938, something like that, okay? And what's going on in America in the 1930s? The Depression, but worldwide we are, dealing with Hitler, right? I mean, England declares war on Germany, I want to say in 1939, and of course we get involved a couple of years later. So Thornton Wilder's living in, the midst of a really chaotic, crazy time, and technology is booming at that time as well, okay? So he chooses to set his play much earlier. Who remembers the year that it opens, that it starts? 1901, and that really predates even, not the invention of cars, but the widespread, marketing and manufacturing of cars. And so it literally is a slower paced time, okay? So I still see laptops open. Y'all need to shut those. I don't want any competition, okay? So put them away. All right, let's see. Yesterday, we were introduced to two families. You might want to jot this down in your notes because I don't think you actually named them. They are the Gibbs and the Webbs, okay? The Gibbs and the Webbs. And their families kind of mirror each other because the two oldest kids are about the same age. One is a girl, one is a boy, and the two younger kids are about the same age, and one is a girl and one is a boy, but they're the opposites. So there's a girl and a boy in each family, okay? And that's probably because this is that miniature little universe that represents a larger whole. And so there's, balance in these two families, right? What is that called, that little mini universe that represents the larger whole? Microcosm. Excellent. Good job, good job, good job. Okay, so we've been introduced to the town, and I think that we left off where the moms had come downstairs and they were trying to get their kids ready for school. And let's see, I think that might be around 6 or 7 in your book.
I believe we're on 7.
Okay, check 7. And I think we probably got to where Rebecca said something like, every day I go to school dressed like a sick turkey. Do y'all remember that? Did we say that?
We stopped at the favorite whistle sounds.
Oh, okay. All right. So we can push a little bit further then. All right. So the stage manager interrupts for a second. And find where the stage manager says, we've got a factory in our town too. Hear it? Got that? All right. Makes blankets. Cartwrights own it. Bring them fortune. The Cartwrights are evidently the very wealthy folks in town. Now, who is my Mrs. Webb?
I think that was me.
Okay. Who was, did I have a Wally? Okay, so, Tyron, read for Wally for now. I may give you another part later, because this one's kind of short. I don't have a lot of boys in here for sure. Who was, I had an Emily, right? Who's my Emily? Did I not have an Emily? Oh my goodness. Okay, DMI, read for Emily. I want a good voice for that, all right? And let's see, who was Mrs. Gibbs? Okay, and who was George? Okay. All right. So y'all kind of speak loudly. All right. Okay. So, Cartwrights own it, and it brung them a fortune. Miss Webb.
Children, now I won't have it. Breakfast is just as good as any other meal, and I won't have you gobbling like the wolves. I'll stunt your growth. That's a fact. Put your book away, Wally.
Oh, Mom, by 10 o'clock, I got to know all about Canada.
You know the rules as well. As I do. No books to the table. As for me, I'd rather have my children healthy than bright.
I'm both, Mama. You know I am. I'm the brightest girl in school for my age. I have a wonderful memory.
I love Emily. She's got a lot of self-confidence, right? I am both, Mom, right? Okay, Miss Webb.
I'm bright too when I'm looking at my STEM collection.
I'll speak to your father about it when he's rested. Seems to me 25 cents a week's enough for a boy your age. I declare I don't know how you spend it all.
Oh, Mom, I got a lot of things to buy.
Strawberry phosphates, that's what you spend it on.
I don't see how Rebecca comes to have so much money. She has more than a dog.
Oh, where's my Rebecca?
I was Rebecca yesterday.
Oh, okay. Ava, read for Rebecca.
I've been saving it up gradual. Well, dear, I think it's a good thing to spend some money every now and then.
Mama, do you know what I love most in the world? Do you? Money.
Eat your breakfast.
There's the bell. Gotta hurry, gotta go. And all the kids get up to go, right? Okay, so just so you know, strawberry phosphates, that would be a strawberry soda because they were bottling like Dr. Pepper and RC Cola and I think Coca-Cola at that and Pepsi. They were bottling some of the like brands that we still see today, but by and large, if you were gonna like have a soda, you were gonna go to the drugstore and sit down at the soda fountain, and there was gonna be someone working the soda fountain who would mix the syrup and the carbonated water and all that stuff together right in front of you, right? So he likes to go spend his allowance on strawberry soda, right? Okay, so Miss Webb.
Walk fast, but you don't have to run. Wally, pull up your pants at the knee. Stand up straight, Emily.
Tell Miss Foster I send her my best congratulations. Can you remember that?
Yes, Mom.
You look real nice, Rebecca. Pick up your feet.
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Okay, so Miss Gibbs is gonna go outside to feed the chickens because you don't have Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know? I mean, you're gonna raise your own chickens. And, you know, if you had fried chicken, it was a chicken that you had in your yard the day before, okay? Go ahead, Miss Gibbs.
Here, tick, tick, tick. No, go away, you go away. Here, tick, tick, tick. What's the matter with you? Fight, fight, fight. That's all you do. You don't belong to me. Where'd you come from? Oh, don't be so scared. Nobody's gonna hurt you. Good morning, Myrtle. How's your cold?
Well, I still get that tingling feeling in my throat. I told Charles I didn't know as I'd go to choir practice tonight. Wouldn't be any use.
Have you tried singing over your voice?
Yes, but somehow I can't do that and stay on key. While I'm resting myself, I thought I'd string some of those beans.
Let me help you. Beans have been good this year.
Oh, I've decided to put up 40 quarts if it kills me. The children say they hate them, but I notice they're able to get them all down all winter.
Now, Myrtle, I've got to tell you something because if I don't tell somebody, I'll burst.
Why, Julia Gibbs?
Here, give me some more of those beans. Myrtle, did one of those secondhand furniture men from Boston come see you last Friday?
No.
Well, he called on me. First I thought he was a patient wanting to see Dr. Gibbs. Then he wormed his way into my parlor, and Myrtle Webb, he offered me $350 for Grandmother Wentworth's highboy. As I'm sitting here.
Okay, so a highboy is like a piece of furniture, and it's evidently really, really big. And this guy has offered her $350 for it. So here's the thing. If George's allowance is 25 cents a week, imagine how much $350 would have been worth back then. Like a lot of money, right? So she's thinking about selling that and having her little, what she is going to call a legacy, okay? All right, and Miss Webb, give us a little bit more energy, okay?
Why, Julia Gibbs?
He did. That old thing, why it was so big I didn't know where to put it, and I almost give it to cousin Hester Wilcox.
Well, you're going to take it, aren't you?
I don't know.
You don't know? $350? What's come over you?
Well, if I could get the doctor to take the money and go away someplace on a real trip, I'd sell it like that. You know, Myrtle, it's been the dream of my life to see Paris, France. Oh, I don't know. It sounds crazy, I suppose. But for years I've been promising myself that if we ever had the chance.
Oh, how does the doctor feel about it?
Well, I did beat about the bush a little and said that if I got a legacy, that's the way I put it, I'd make him take me somewhere.
What did he say?
You know how he is. I haven't heard a serious word out of him since I've known him. No, he said it might make him discontented with Grover's Corners to go traipsing about Europe. Better let well enough alone, he says. Every 2 years he makes a trip to the battlefields of the Civil War, and that's enough treat for anybody, he says.
All right, so this is supposed to be funny, okay? Because have any of y'all been to a battlefield for the Civil War? What's there to see, Charlie?
Monuments,
There are monuments. What else?
a museum.
Possibly, not always, but sometimes. What else?
There's
nothing.
Fields. Like just open fields, right? And so her husband, you know, he's got a hobby like all people do, and his hobby is studying the Civil War, right? And he is very much interested in the battlefields. And he's like, oh, why do we need to go to Paris? We just go to Antietam, right? And, you know, so she's supposed to, it is a microcosm. So these characters do kind of represent human nature and our feelings and things. And this is representative of all of our desires to go somewhere, to see something new, right? She's going to make the comment a little bit later, you know, I feel like everybody should go somewhere where they don't talk English and don't even want to, which I think is kind of fun. That is cool. I think we should all have that opportunity, okay? All right, let's see. I think it was Mrs. Webb, yeah.
Well, Mr. Webb just admires the way Dr. Gibb knows everything about the Civil War. Mr. Webb's a good mind to give up Napoleon and move over to the Civil War. Only Dr. Gibbs, being one of the greatest experts in the country, just makes him despair.
It's a fact. Dr. Gibbs is never so happy as when he's at
Antietam.
Antietam or Gettysburg. The times I've walked over those hills, Myrtle, stopping at every bush and placing it all out like we were going to buy it.
Well, if that second-hand man's really serious about buying it, Juliet, you sell it. And then you'll get to see Paris. All right, just keep dropping hints from time to time. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry I mentioned it. Only it seems to me that once in your life, before you die, you ought to see a country where they don't talk in English and don't even want to.
That's so cool. Love that. Okay. Have you guys been able to travel out of the United States where you are around people who don't speak your language? Has anybody had that opportunity? Where have you been, Micah?
Juarez, Mexico.
Okay, Mexico. What about you, not Bailey, but Bess?
Oh, Mexico?
Yeah?
Yeah, Cozumel, Mexico.
Okay.
And the Bahamas.
Oh, yeah. What about you, Bailey?
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. What about you, Bailey? I thought I saw your hand. Nope. Anybody else?
Wait, what are we talking about?
Have you been to a country where they don't speak English?
I never left the country. I haven't come close to leaving the country.
Well, you know, that reminds me of what Miss Webb says. She's like, you keep dropping hints and, you know, you'll get what you want. That's how I got to see the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the first time I read this, I was thinking across the country, but she lives in the East. The Atlantic Ocean is not really that far from her. So even getting to see the Atlantic Ocean for someone like Miss Webb is kind of a big deal, right? People just didn't travel as much back then as they do now, okay? All right, thank you, ladies. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to skip a few hours, but first we want a little more information about the town, kind of a scientific account, as you might say. And he calls on a character who's supposed to be a local professor, but it gets too dull for me. So we're going to actually skip that part. Bailey, get off your phone, okay?
We're breaking the fourth wall.
This whole play does that, honestly. All right, go to about a page ahead where the stage manager says, "Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged to you for sure." Do you guys see that? Okay. All right, so the stage manager, it's about a page ahead probably. "Thank you very much, Professor. We're all very much obliged to you." Tell me when you find it.
Do you know what page it is?
Oh,
I don't.
It's 12.
Page 12. There you go. All right. Okay, and let's see. He is going to ask for Editor Webb to come forward and give some information. Remember, we have two families. One's the doctor's family, one's the editor's family. So skip down just a little bit. This way, Professor, thank you again. Now, the political and social report. Editor Webb. Oh, Mr. Webb. Now, Miss Webb comes out and says,
He'll be here in a minute. He just cut his hand while he was eating an apple.
thank you, Miss Webb.
Charles, everybody's waiting.
Mr. Webb is publisher and editor of the Grover's Corner Sentinel. That's our local paper, you know. Oh, and Mr. Webb finally comes out. Now, who is my Mr. Webb? I think Charlie was somebody, but were you Mr. Gibbs?
I was Dr. Gibbs.
Okay, so I don't have a Mr. Webb? All right, so Tyron, you had a good voice. Why don't you take Mr. Webb?
Well, I don't have to tell you that we're run here by a board of selectmen. All males vote at the age of 21. Women vote indirect. We're lower middle class, Franklin has professional men. 10% illiterate laborers. Politically, already 6% Republicans, 6% Democrats, 4% socialists, rest indifferent. Religiously, we're 85% Protestant, 12% Catholic, rest indifferent.
Have you any comments, Mr. Webb?
A very ordinary time, if you ask me. A little better behaved than most, probably a lot duller. But our young people here seem to like it well enough. 90% of them graduating from high school, settle down right here to live, even when they've been away to college.
Now, is there anyone in the audience who would like to ask Editor Webb anything about the town? Okay, so I always get Sanaya and it's Sanaya and then Sanai, right? Okay, so Sanai, you read for Woman in the Balcony and The Belligerent Man, okay? And a little bit later on, you're going to be Lady in the Box, which I'll explain in a second too. You're not literally in a box, all right? Okay, so these are what are called plants. You might want to jot that down. A plant is someone who is planted in the audience that acts like they're an audience member when they're really part of the cast. Does that make sense to you guys? Okay, cool. So, all right. Yeah, Woman in the Balcony. Go ahead. I think that, yeah.
Is there much drinking in Grover's Corner?
Well, ma'am, I wouldn't know what you call much.
Saturday.
Saturday nights, the farm hands meet down in Ellery Greeno?
Yeah.
Greeno's stable and holler some. We've got 1 or 2 town drunks, but they're always having remorses every time the evangelist comes to town. No, ma'am. I say like a
Liquor.
liquor or regular thing in the home here, except in the medicine chest. Right good for snake bite, you know? Always would.
And belligerent means angry, so put some anger in there.
Is there no one in town aware of?
Come forward, will ya, where we can all hear you.
Is there
Well,
no?
go ahead. No, but it's all right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're being belligerent. That's okay. You're supposed
Is there
to.
no one in town aware of social injustice and industrial inequality?
Oh yes, everybody is something terrible. Seems like they spend most of the time talking about who's rich and who's poor.
Then why don't they do something about it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we're all hunting like everybody else for a way the diligent and sensible can rise to the top and lazy and quarrelsome can sink to the bottom. It ain't easy to find. Meanwhile, we do all we can to help those that can't help themselves and those that we can't leave alone. Are there any other questions?
Okay, so let me pause here for a second. I love his philosophy on life, okay? He says, look, if you need help, we try to help you. But if you can take care of yourself, we just we let you be. And I think that's a pretty good philosophy, right? Okay, if you ask for help, it's one thing. But if you got it, let them just kind of do their thing, right? All right, now lady in a box means this is someone who is in the box seats. They're going to be like probably kind of wealthy. They got the best seats in the house. It's the folks that are usually you'll see like up, you know, closer to the stage, right? And they're in a little box. President Lincoln was in the box seats when he was shot. You've all kind of probably seen that image, right? Okay, lady in a box.
Oh, Mr. Webb, is there any culture or love of beauty in
Grover's.
Grover's Corners?
Well, ma'am, there ain't much. Not in the sense you mean. Come to think of it, there's some girls that play the piano at high school commencement, but they ain't happy about it. Yeah, ma'am, there isn't much culture. But maybe this is the place to tell you that we've got a lot of pleasure of a kind here. We like the sun coming up over the mountain in the morning. We all know it's a good deal about the birds. pay a lot of attention to them. And we watch the change of the season. Yes, everybody knows about them. But those other things, you're right, man, they ain't much. Robinson Crusoe and the Bible, and Handel's Largo. We all know that. And Whistler's Mother. Those are just about as far as we go.
So I thought. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Okay, so you probably see that a lot of that is highlighted because I think this is one of the key ideas of the story, and that is that these folks are really connected to their environment, right? They don't have all the distractions that we do. Heck, they didn't even have television back then, right? I mean, they had radios and stuff, but they pay attention to the changing of the seasons. They pay attention to the birds, which is very like transcendental, this idea of being connected to nature. I feel like we have such a fast-paced and complicated, society now that we got all these distractions that kind of takes us away from some of that. And it kind of reminds us that maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention to like our natural surroundings. Now, personal question, who in your family pays attention to the birds? Is there anybody in your family that pay attention to birds? They're usually who?
Old people.
The old people, exactly. Now I gotta tell you something. I've been teaching this for a really long time, okay? And I thought when I first started teaching that, it was kind of a generational thing that, they grew up paying more attention to the birds. But now I'm coming to think that maybe it's just that they're probably retired and they have more time on their hands, right? So maybe watching the birds is like a symptom of getting older. I don't know. I'll let you know in about 10 years. Maybe I'll be ready to watch the birds too, okay? But they have simple pleasures, even though they don't have like what they would call culture, right? All right, thank you, Mr. Webb. Now, we'll go back to the town. It's early afternoon. All 2,642 have had their dinners, and all the dishes have been washed. There's an early afternoon calm in our town, a buzzing and humming from the school buildings. Only a few buggies on Main Street, horses dozing at the hitching post. You all remember what that was like. Doc Gibbs is in his office tapping people, making them say, ah, and Mr. Webb's cutting his lawn over there. 1 man in 10 thinks it's a privilege to push his own lawnmower. No, sir, it's later than I thought. There are the children coming home from school already, and you can hear voices of kids leaving school. So here comes Emily walking down Main Street, and the little stage note says she's imagining herself to be a lady of some elegance. Emily.
I can't, Lewis. I've got to go home and help Mother. I promised.
Emily, walk simply. Who you think you are today?
Papa, you're terrible. 1 minute you tell me to stand up straight, and the next minute you call me names. I don't listen to you.
I just don't listen to you anymore, and she gives him an abrupt kiss. So they have a really good relationship. He's kind of teasing her and all that stuff. He says, go ahead.
Got it. I ain't never got a kiss from such a great lady before.
Now, George Gibbs comes careening down Main Street. That means he's coming really fast and he's not paying really close attention. And he's a baseball player. So he's like pantomiming, throwing this baseball up and catching it. And he bumps into this old woman. But the stage manager plays a lot of the minor characters. And so when he bumps into the old woman, the stage manager takes on that role. Okay, George.
Excuse me, Mrs. Forrest.
Go out and play in the fields, young man. You got no business playing baseball on Main Street.
Awfully sorry, Miss Forrest. Hello, Emily.
Hello.
You made a fine speech in class.
Well, I was really ready to make a speech about the Monroe Doctrine, but at the last minute, Miss Corcoran made me talk about Louisiana Purchase instead. I worked an awful long time on both of them.
Gee, it's funny, Emily. From my window up there, I can just see your head nods when you're doing your homework over in your room.
Why, can you?
You certainly do stick to it, Emily. I don't see how you can sit still that long. I guess you like school.
Well, I always feel it's something you have to go through.
Okay, so let me explain. So remember, we have like a bare bones stage, okay? So these two live next door to each other. So when he says, I can see you at night when you're studying, I mean, you guys coming from the 21st century, you're like, stalker, right? But they've known each other their entire lives, and they live next door, and their bedroom windows are such that they can actually communicate through the windows. And they're going to do that. And the way it's staged is really kind of interesting. They bring out ladders, and the ladder is going to represent the upstairs of the one house, and then the ladder on the other side is going to represent the upstairs of the other. And when they're talking later on through their windows at night, they're going to be like standing on the ladder and literally talking to each other,
It
right?
seems very stereotypical.
What's that?
It seems like very cliche. That's the word.
Well, I think it might have made the cliche. Does that make sense? Yeah. I mean, I think it might have made the cliche because this is, quite old. All right. So, yeah, we've got friends that have grown up together, and now we start to see that maybe George is a little interested, okay, in her, and maybe a little bit more than a friend, right? Okay, so I'm not sure where we were, but and Emily says, I just think school's something that you have to get through. Wow. How many times have you thought that yourself? Oh my goodness. Every day, right? I know that COVID last spring made us appreciate actually coming to school, but I don't know about you, but I have to get up every day and tell myself, yep, got to get through the day, right? So things change, but some things stay the same, right? Exactly. Okay, go ahead. And George says, yeah.
I don't mind it really. It passes the time.
Yeah? Emily, what do you think? We might work out a kind of telegraph from your window to mine, and once in a while you can give me a kind of hint or two about one of those algebra problems. I don't mean the answers, Emily, of course, just some hints, some little hint.
Oh, I think hints are allowed. So, if you get stuck, George, you whistle to me, and I'll give you some hints.
Emily, you're just naturally bright.
I figure that it's just a way a person is born.
Yeah, but you see, I wanted to be a farmer, and my Uncle Luke said, whenever I'm ready, I can come over and work on his farm. And if I'm any good, I can just gradually have it.
You mean the house and everything?
Yeah, well, thanks. I better get going on to the baseball field. Thanks for the talk, Emily. Good afternoon, Miss Webb.
Good afternoon, George.
So long, Emily.
So long, George.
Emily, come and help me string these beans for the winter. George Gibbs let himself have a real conversation, didn't he? Why, he's growing up. How old would George be?
I don't know.
Let's see, he must be almost 16.
Mama, I made a speech in class today, and I was very good.
You must recite it to your father at supper. What was it about?
The Louisiana Purchase. It was like silk of a spool.
Yeah, silk off a spool, which means it just flowed. It was great.
I'm going to make speeches all my life. Mama, are these big enough?
Yeah, and they're stringing beans, so that means they've got, I think, green beans where you snap the ends off, and then sometimes you'll go in and actually take the beans out of the pod or whatnot. But I think they're just snapping them at this point. But she says, Mama, I'm going to make speeches all my life. What does that tell us about her?
She likes to talk.
Well, yeah, she likes to talk, but what else? I mean, you may like to talk, but that doesn't mean you're going to make speeches all your life, right? She's ambitious. She has all these goals, right? And of course, that represents, the goals that everybody has. And of course, George is just I think he kind of likes her, and he's like, you just naturally bright, I guess, right? Okay, now she's going to ask her mom some peculiar questions. Okay, go ahead.
Mama, will you answer me a question? Answer me a question. Serious?
Seriously, dear? Not serious.
Seriously, will you?
Of course I will.
Mama, am I good looking?
Yes, of course you are. All my children have got good features. I'd be ashamed if they hadn't.
Oh, Mama. Oh, Mama, that's not what I mean. What I mean is, am I pretty?
I've already told you yes. Now that's enough of that. You have a nice, young, pretty face. I've never heard of such foolishness.
Oh, Mama. You never tell us the truth about anything.
I am telling you the truth.
Mama, are you pretty?
Or were you pretty?
Or were you
Which is kind of insulting, right? Were you pretty?
Yes, I was. If I do say it, I was the prettiest girl in town next to
Mamie.
Amy Cartwright.
But Mama, you've got to say something about me. Am I pretty enough to get anybody? To get people interested in me?
Emily, you make me tired now. Stop it. You're pretty enough for all human purposes. Come along now and bring that bowl with you.
Oh Mama, you're no help at all.
All right, so Emily, is asking her mom things like, am I good looking? Am I pretty? Why?
She likes George.
She likes George, yeah. So this friendship that she's had with him is starting to turn into something else, okay? And she has that talk with her mom. Now, I got to ask you guys something. If you asked one of your parents, am I good looking?
It's pretty much fun.
They're gonna say.
Would they say, you are the most beautiful thing in the whole world? Or would they say, you make me tired. You're good looking enough for all normal purposes, whatever that means. I don't know what that means, right? Oh, my goodness.
He'd be like, no. Shut up.
Oh, so I mean, would they stroke your ego and tell you you're wonderful and beautiful?
Yeah.
Some of y'all are like yes, some of y'all are like no.
My mom would.
Oh my goodness! And sometimes it depends on the parent, right?
I'd be like, you're from
So clearly this is not. Clearly, her mom has not told her all her life how cute she is, right? Now, when my kid was growing up, and he's 20 now, almost 21, but when he was growing up, I would tell him all the time how cute he was. And now when I see him, I'm like, dude, you got COVID weight. You're rocking the dad bod. Like, you need to drop some weight. You know what he's so confident. He's so cocky. He says, Mom, girls like the dad bod. Makes them feel better about themselves. And that's where I start questioning my own raising of the child. What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong?
Your son's single?
Confidence.
Single and ready to mingle.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about this a little bit later on because I always use anecdotes about Ben. But he dated a girl from Bird. They were high school sweethearts, and they dated for like 4 years. And then they recently kind of broke up, and they're both like playing the field. But I'm hoping they'll get back together. But that's a long story. So. Anyway, he's driving me crazy on a daily basis with his antics, but that's another story. All right. So thank you. That'll do. We'll have to interrupt again here. Thank you, Miss Webb. Thank you, Emily. Now, there's some more things we want to explore about this town. I think this is a good time to tell you that the Cartwright interests have just begun building a new bank in Grover's Corners. Had to go to Vermont for the marble, sorry to say. And they've asked a friend of mine what they should put in the cornerstone for people to dig up 1,000 years from now. Of course, they put in a copy of the New York Times and a copy of Mr. Webb's Sentinel. We're kind of interested in this because some scientific fellas have found a way of painting all that reading matter with a glue, a silicate glue, that'll make it keep 1,000, 2,000 years. We're putting in a Bible and the Constitution of the United States and a copy of William Shakespeare's plays. What do you say, folks? What do you think? You know, Babylon once had 2 million people in it, and all we know about them is the name of the kings and copies of wheat contracts and contracts for the sale of slaves. Yet every night, all those families sat down to dinner. Father came home from work, smoke went up the chimney, same as here. And even in Greece and Rome, all we know about the real life of the people is what we can piece together out of the joking poems and the comedies they wrote for the theater back then. Okay, so let me tell you what a cornerstone is. It's kind of like a time capsule, okay? But there's no expiration date. There's no date that they're gonna dig it up. So a cornerstone is a vessel of sorts where you put in items that are significant. And it would be buried beside the cornerstone of a building. So, for instance, when Bird was built, way back in 1924, when they started laying the foundation, they had a ceremony where they laid the cornerstone and they actually buried a time capsule of sorts. But it was not going to be uncovered in 2550 100 years. It's just supposed to remain there until finally this old school breaks down and decays, which if you've ever been to the catacombs, seems like it must be sooner than later. Have any of y'all been to the catacombs? I mean, it is some crumbly stuff, okay? And it makes you a little nervous for the actual foundation of the school, but
It can't be that bad.
it's pretty bad. But I inquired, they're not like necessary walls that are crumbling. But anyway, anywho, the cornerstone at Byrd was laid in, I want to say 1924, okay, and they had a capstone and a cornerstone, sorry, and they put in things like a Bible. They put in a little vial of oil to represent the oil boom of the day, which is why the yearbook's called the Gusher, because the yearbook predates Byrd and goes all the way back to Shreveport High School, and it was established when there was a big oil boom in town, okay? This is the weirdest thing. They put in a boll weevil, which I'm like, wouldn't that just decay? But it was an insect that would represent the plight of the farmer back then. And they put in a couple of other things too, but it's there. And someday it'll be uncovered. And it's just this idea that you leave something behind for someone someday to discover, okay? So they have a new building that went in downtown, and they have a cornerstone, and our narrator, the stage manager, says that we're going to put in a copy of the play, because we got all these other things, but this play really speaks about what daily life was like, okay? So he says, I'm going to have a copy of this play put in the cornerstone, and the people 1,000 years from now will know a few simple facts about us more than the Treaty of Versailles and the Lindbergh flight. See what I mean? So, now he's talking to the people 1,000 years from now, right? He would be reading the play. He says, so, people 1,000 years from now, this is the way we were in the provinces north of New York at the beginning of the 20th century. This is the way we were in our growing up, and in our marrying, and in our living, and in our dying. Okay, now choir starts to sing, and we find out that Simon Stimson, who is the choir director, is also the town drunk. Okay, yeah, and it's a bit of a scandal. Okay,
Wired man.
yes. Logan, what was your part before? It seems like you read, didn't you?
I didn't have one.
Okay, so you're now the town drunk. Congratulations. All right. All right, so now the two ladders have been brought on stage. That's going to show where Emily and George are going to go upstairs, okay? We're just going to read a couple more pages, then we'll close it down for the day, but I want to get to where our first hour was. So, well, a good deal of time has gone by. It's evening. You can hear the choir practice going on in the Congregational Church. Children are at home doing their schoolwork. The day's running down like a tired clock, and Simon is going to lead his choir. Go ahead, Simon.
Now look here, everybody. Music come into the world to give pleasure. Softer, softer, get it out of your heads that music's only good when it's loud. You leave loudness to the Methodists. You couldn't beat them even if you wanted to. Now again, tenors.
Tenors, yeah. So I, again, was raised Southern Baptist, and if they wanted to make any kind of jokes that was like making a little dig on a, what's the right word? A rival denomination, I suppose, they always poke fun at the Methodists, okay? So they're kind of poking fun at the Methodists. All right, George.
Emily.
Hello?
Hello.
I can't work at all. This moonlight's so terrible.
Emily, did you get the third problem?
Which?
The third.
Yes. Yes, George. That's the easiest of them all.
I don't see it. Emily, can you give me a hand?
I'll tell you one thing. The answer is in yards.
In yards?
What
What do you mean?
In square yards?
In square yards?
Yes, George. Don't you see?
Yeah.
George doesn't see. He doesn't get it. Go ahead, Emily.
In square yards of wallpaper.
Wallpaper. Oh, I see. Thanks a lot, Emily.
You're welcome. Mine isn't the moonlight terrible? In choir practice going on, I think if you hold your breath, you can hear the train all the way to
Contoocook, which is a real place.
Contoocook.
Yep.
Hear it?
What do you know?
Well, I guess I better go back and try to work.
Good night, Emily, and thanks.
Good night, George.
Before I forget it, how many of you will be able to come in Tuesday afternoon and sing at Fred
Hershey's.
wedding? Show your hands. That'll be fine. That'll be right nice. We'll do the same music we did for the Jane Trowbridge.
Mm-hmm.
Trowbridge's last month. Now we'll do Art Thou Weary, Art Thou Languid.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question, ladies and gentlemen. Make it talk. Ready?
Okay, Doc Gibbs.
Oh, shoot. Oh, George, can you come down a minute?
Yes, Paul?
Make yourself comfortable, George. I'll only keep you a minute. George, how old are you?
I'm 16, almost 17.
What do you do after school's over?
Why, you know, Paul.
What to do?
I want to be a farmer on Uncle Luke's farm.
You'll be willing, will you, to get up early and milk and feed the stock, and you'll be able to hoe and hay all day?
Sure, I will. What are you? What do you mean, Paul?
Well, George, while I was in my office today, I heard a funny sound. What do you think it was? It was your mother chopping wood. There you see your mother getting up early, cooking meals all day long, washing and ironing, and still she has to go out into the backyard and chop wood. I suppose she just got tired of asking you. She just gave up and decided it was easier to do it herself. And you eat her meal and put on the clothes she keeps nice for you, and you run off and play baseball. Like she's some hired girl we keep around the house, but that we don't like very much. Well, I knew all I had to do was call your attention to it. Either handkerchief, son. George, I decided to raise your spending money 25 cents a week. Not, of course, for chopping wood for your mother, because that's a present you give her, but because you're getting older, and I imagine there are a lot of things you must find to do with it.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, so, all right, so he's going to raise his allowance, and he does that on top of kind of low-key fussing at him, right? He's like, you know, I heard this sound outside, and what do you think that was? That was the sound of your mother chopping wood. I think that's what you're supposed to do, right? So this kind of represents those talks that especially dads have with their kids when they realize that their sons are growing up and they need to kind of direct them in the right path, right? And he says, you know, I knew all I had to do was bring your attention to it. And he says, here's a handkerchief, which tells us what was George's reaction to realizing he'd been not appreciating or helping his mom. Yeah, he tears up a little bit, right? So George is a good kid. He's a good kid. But let me ask you this. Do you take your parents for granted? If you say, no, I do not, I think you may not be truthful. Because you know that there are things that they do for you that you just expect. All right, we're going to stop there. You got about a 5-minute break.